there's a couple of things that, is what writers do. That kept showing up and irritated everyone so much that I gave it to sort of the villain, not me. But there's another one I gave to her brother. That was when we were living in New York City. I was walking the dog one cold night. We have a little black pug. They're not very good on ice. They're not good at anything. They're not, and she's used to peeing on grass. It's California, and New York doesn't have a lot of that. So I found a little patch of grass for her to pee, her favorite grass on Waverly Place. And this woman came out of the apartment building, sort of like an older woman with that sort of darkly dyed black hair that's really frizzy and like a big black trench coat and very New York. And she was like, "You motherfucker, your dog is gonna kill that tree. You fuckers are killing all the trees." And I'm not good at that kind of confrontation. I'm from Maryland, we don't do that. So I try to be like, "Hi, I'm your neighbor. It's good to meet you." Trying to like kill her with kindness, and she kept saying "fuck" at me. And I was really, shaken by it. So she kept screaming at me about it, and so I got my dog off the grass. But before we left, I turned to her, and you don't often get to say the right thing, but I said to her something that you should never say to anybody, and that I put in this book because it's such a mean thing to say. I said to her, "Madam, when you were a little girl, is this the woman you dreamed of becoming?" And that it's in the book, but it's also made it into our daily lives. That sometimes there's an argument, and I'm telling David, like, I do not understand why the napkins are thrown behind the dryer and the socks are and I'm getting into something. David will begin, "Madam." And I'm like, okay. Flush it away. I'm going to jump forward to another part in the book. I'm jumping 40 pages. And I have to explain a little magical thing that happens. You'll just go along with me because you're drunk. That Greta, her Nathan leaves her. Her brother has died. She's having problems. She's depressed, and she goes to a psychiatrist, and he sends her to an electroconvulsive therapy doctor. And she has this electroshock therapy in order to get her out of her depression. And it has the effect on her that she wakes up the next morning and she's in her bedroom, but the wallpaper's changed and the drapes have changed and the furniture's changed and the view out the window has changed. Her aunt comes in and she's wearing a funny outfit, and her aunt takes her outside, and Greta slowly realizes that she's done this thing I talked about before. She has awakened in her same life, but it is set in 1918. And in this version of her life, down the street comes her brother, who's alive, because he hasn't died of AIDS. He's alive, and she's amazed at this sort of miracle. She's come into this world where all the terrible things that had happened in her world are undone, and the dead are alive again. In fact, around her, she's seen all these young men who she knew, who had died in her world. They're all sort of back to life. But her brother is getting married and kind of a jerk. He's kind of a chauvinistic jerk. And it's all confusing and upsetting to her. Not just that she's in this new world, but that people aren't, if she's gonna be in a magical world, she would like everyone to be just as she wants them to be, but they're not. And she thinks, when the dead come back to life, they come back with all the things you did not miss at all about them. So she goes to sleep, and she wakes up the next morning. And this is this part. There's a little clock in the book that if you buy the book, you can see. What a strange sleep it was. I woke, bright sun and light flickering gaily on the ceiling and the fading sound of bells ringing in the air. The sheets were soft and warm. I felt refreshed as if I'd slept 100 years. The sound of whispering voices, footsteps creaking floorboards. But it was the smell that alerted me, even before I opened my eyes. Gone was the gaslight soot and manure, the cinnamon and violets of that other world. Here, dust and aftershave. Why aftershave? My eyes opened to a different scene entirely. I couldn't help but smile. I'm not back at all, I thought to myself. I'm somewhere else again. Golden curtains hung in my bedroom window where green ones had been, and landscape photographs instead of paintings, and yet it was still my room, still my home. Outside, the same low brick buildings of Patchen Place, the yellow ginkgo leaves of an autumn in my village. I looked with interest on an unfamiliar lady's vanity below the folding mirror, the canisters of creams and powders, the long-handled brush, the hairpins all neat in a tin box. They were all strangers to me. And yet that was my own red hair snagged in that brush. A mirrored wastepaper basket caught the morning light and sent streamers around the room. Dust and aftershave. It seemed so possible that I could be somewhere else, that each morning would unfold anew like a pop-up book of possible lives. So was it any surprise when I heard a knock on the door? Two people talking, but one particular voice, Mrs. Green, one particular phrase before he walked into the room. I leave it to you. Nathan, turning to smile at me from the doorway. But he was changed, as everything was changed. Clean-shaven as he stood above me with wire-rimmed glasses, khaki uniform. How strange to see him without a beard. He looked so young, same long, narrow face lined with worry at the eyes, same heart-shaped hairline. His hand on my cheek, his smile unforced and kind, his brown eyes darting thoughtfully to a glass of water beside me, which a moment later he tilted to my lips and from which I drank. I swallowed, and he got up to leave, but I found myself grabbing at his sleeve with my right hand. My left seemed to be weighed down. Nathan, I said. Shh, he said, pressing my arm down by my side again and kneading my hand. Be quiet and rest. The doctor said the first few procedures can be hard. Everything's changed. The doctor said you might not remember. Don't worry about that now. All right, I said. I looked down at my left arm and saw it was in a plaster cast. With my other hand, I touched the cool surface. I could feel the break inside it and let out a gasp of pain. What is it? I looked into his face, so altered by this clean, smooth jaw and close haircut and whatever life he'd had in this world, and yet instantly him, instantly the headstrong Nathan. I said the obvious. I've broken my arm. Yes, he said. There was an accident. I tried to lift my body. Don't try getting up, he said, taking my shoulders in his hands to place me back in the bed. But I flinched at his touch. I felt I would die if he touched me like that after all this time. Don't, I said. Something's changed. What do you mean? I'm not from here. I'm not who you think I am. Darling, I know you're confused, he said. But now I was no longer listening. For out the window I saw there was a change to my view, a billboard set on a rooftop whose message never existed in my world. What year is it? He tried to keep the concern from his face as he squeezed my hand. I have a sleeping pill in the other room. The doctor said it would be harmless. Nathan, what year is it? It's 1941, darling. November 1st, 1941. Well, of course, I said. It's all coming back to me. And as he stroked my hair, I tried to smile. I looked out the billboard with its man-high looping mint green letters. It's a really nice graphic here that if you buy the book, you can see. I'll read it to you. How about that? Send a salami to your boy in the army. Which is Katz's delicatessen. 1941. A world of other choices, other chances, with antique taxis honking on the streets and brass-buttoned policemen shouting from 6th Avenue and giant women's hats floating by the gate of Patchen Place, army boys shouting at girls, a smell of cigarettes and roasted chestnuts with factory smoke thickening the air. Here it was, Manhattan of another time, and not only had my Nathan never left me in this world, here he had married me. So there were at least 3 lives to lead. A life in 1918 with a husband away at war, a life in 1941 with him here by my side. There was no question it was the procedure that had brought this impossibility about. But how could I get back? And would it last only as long as the electricity did? Or would I leave every night, from star to star, until I reached a beginning or an end? It's all coming back to me, I said. And as he stroked my hair, I tried to smile. Be here, I told myself. Be this Greta. There had been a car accident, he told me. Almost 3 weeks before, this Greta I was inhabiting, she'd broken more than her arm. She'd broken her mind as well, I understood. Had become a sad and hysterical wife to this Nathan dressed in his army doctor uniform. A doctor had been called in and with hushed tones and drawn curtains had administered a procedure to help me back from the darkness. Of course this was how it went. Of course this was how our minds had connected in that blue electric flash of madness across the membrane of 3 worlds, so we switched places, 2 Gretas and myself, and awoke to different lives. The doctor said your memories would come back, but slowly. He reached for the table beside me and produced a flat, engraved silver case, which he clipped open like a compact to reveal a row of cigarettes as white as teeth. He took one and lit it. You're a smoker, I said. Nathan squinted at me queerly and stroked my forehead again. You just rest. As he moved, its lavender smoke wrote in cursive all around his body. His whole body tilted over me, and dear God, I could smell some old new-fashioned cologne and the crisp starch of his shirt and the faint leathery grease of whatever was in his hair, but underneath it all I recognized the scent of my old lover. And it was awful. Awful to be brought back so thoroughly. Nearly as awful as what he next said, breathing into my ear. Just remember I love you. I had not ever thought that I would cry in front of him again. Not after what he put me through in our world. There is the thing you hope for. And then beyond it, like a prize kept locked and out of reach behind the counter, there is the thing you dare not hope for. To win it without expectation, without warning, and worst of all, without earning it in any way, is for the world to become a magical place. One in which prayers are not answered and wrongs are not righted, nor anything kept in balance. But punishments and rewards are given at random, as if by a drunk or insane king, which is to say, a hurtful place to live. I had to look away so he would not see my absurd tears. Your brother's been by, but Mrs. Green was strict, and our Felix... Oh, can I see Felix? I interrupted. He laughed. Well, he's right outside waiting for you. He's asking for you constantly. So my brother was alive. And what would he be like this time? As headstrong and foolish as ever? Surely times had changed enough since the last time I saw him. Surely this time my Felix would be himself. And if that were so, I swore to myself that I would never close my eyes again, never leave this land that I had traveled to. Send him in, I shouted. Well, at least you remember him. You know, yesterday, Nathan said a little mischievously, we thought you were from the past or something like that. Well, aren't we all from the past? I said. Did I say what it was like? No, but I guess you thought it wasn't anything like this. He laughed. But now you're back. Really, do you feel up to seeing him? We didn't want to wake you. Yes, I told him, of course, I'm longing to. This seemed to thrill Nathan. His long, still shockingly beardless face bent in a smile beneath his glasses and vanished into the hall, talking to someone there. The door gleamed in a square of white varnish. Left alone, I looked around the room with the sensitive eyes of a detective inspecting a murder scene, looking for clues to this world. It was fairly tidy for a sick room, though a pair of laddered stockings had been snake-shed onto the vanity beside a bottle of nail polish. On a nearby roll-up secretary lay a pile of envelopes, stationery, a marbled fountain pen. Gold dust floated everywhere. I tried to take it all in anew. That was when I caught sight of my triptych reflection in the vanity's hinged mirrors. It was not me there. The one I'd grown so used to seeing in my own cracked mirror in that other room like this one. Tall and short hair, hips too wide in jeans, breasts too small in blouses, misshapen and flawed, sometimes better, sometimes worse. It was me, of course. Except this woman was beautiful. Her red hair was brushed high in the front and curled in thick waves on the sides, so carefully and artfully done I could not imagine how she achieved it. And below this, somehow enhanced by the nightgown I wore, was a body flowing in cream satin like a dressmaker's form. Never had I looked like this. I touched myself with my free hand, unbelieving. For it had not occurred to me that I didn't merely shift into another self. I shifted into another body. Greta, came Nathan's voice from the door, and I was confronted with a new, spectacular tableau. Of course, I thought to myself, why didn't I expect this? There, framed by the white painted wood, I saw Nathan holding a little boy of about 3 or 4, who koala clung to him. He had small green eyes and sleek waves of brown hair. Felix, he was saying to the child, hush now, look, Fee, your mommy's here. Then he set the boy on the floor and sailor hat falling behind. My son ran joyfully toward me. I'm gonna stop there.